The 11th All Africa Business Leaders Awards were announced at a glittering ceremony at Sun City recently. The prestigious event attracted some of Africa's most notable business leaders and decision makers. The awards showcased the remarkable achievements and contributions of Africa's business leaders while highlighting the importance of collaboration, infrastructure investment and consistent policies.
The IDC is really focused on celebrating South Africa and, more importantly, the rest of the continent. This is what we do. This is in the lifeblood of the IDC. We've invested in some of the biggest, most successful businesses in this continent, and we think that celebrating all of that and celebrating the successes of the people that run those businesses is really aligned to our values, aligned to our purpose, and aligned to the country, really. So that's why we're here.
And just last month we were celebrating Africa Month, and now we're here, we're celebrating the AABLA Awards. So what is the IDC doing to sort of advance the Africa First agenda?
So, we had a few challenges in the investments that we made in Africa, but we have had an amazing turn, and we are open for Africa. The IDC is one DFI in this country that is open to the whole continent, and we are open to investing in the whole continent. A lot of our investments have totally turned around, and we're starting to see the benefits of those investments. And as you know, the IDC focuses on three things: financial sustainability of our investee companies. We focus on, of course, developmental outcomes. We want jobs, 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 and this is Africa, so jobs are important. And we want to see Black people advance. So we are beginning to see all of those three things happening, and we are open for business in the rest of the continent.
Lovely. And we're here to celebrate and honor African excellence, but there's always room for improvement, right? So what avenues or channels do you think maybe African businesses can adopt to prosper even further, especially in the current uncertain economic times that we find ourselves in?
I think Africans need to be more trusting of one another, more open. So in our experiences, a lot of the challenges that we face is because people are hiding information. They do not want to say when they're struggling. They do not want to share their struggles fully so that they can get their assistance. So for me, in my role, the biggest thing I want is trust and openness. I want to know that the person that I'm working with is credible. They know what they're doing, and that they are also focused on the same things that I'm focused on, which is advancing the African economy. So if we can align on all of those things and we can trust one another, I really do believe that transparency, which is really our biggest issue in Africa, can get us further than where we are. That's why we're dealing with fraud and corruption. It's because we're not having enough transparency. So I'd really appeal to our African entrepreneurs to really become more transparent and understand that we're all trying to do the same thing. We're on the same page.
So I want to understand how the IDC gauges the investor sentiment towards Africa and what it has to offer.
We attend events such as this one and many others all over the continent. We spend a lot of time with sister companies like the AFDB, like other TDB, and many others all over the continent. We attend many African conferences that focus on different things. Africa is really, if you just bring it down to the essence, is dealing with only a few issues. Of course, those will result in other issues, but if we could solve the energy crisis in Africa, if we could solve the water crisis in Africa, and if we could solve the logistics issues that we have in Africa, I think the rest of the other issues are kind of easier to resolve in the continent. So we spend a lot of time as the IDC in conferences that deal with those three items so that we can be able to be at the forefront of the thinking in the continent on those things, and also so that we can be part of the solutions to resolve those problems.
All right, so we're at the 11th AABLA Award. I mean, we're celebrating change makers, innovators, business leaders from across the continent. In your opinion, what is the significance of the AABLA Awards?
Well, for me, it's about celebrating the African heritage, and it's more aligned to us as ABSA Group with our new purpose, where we really underpin our purpose in empowering Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time. That's what they mean to me.
And coming here, I mean, what are you expecting to see? What are you excited about?
I'm really excited about seeing those innovators, those entrepreneurs that are really changing the world. You know, for me, it's often starting in the morning. We have that nice cup of coffee because one innovator or entrepreneur decided to come with a coffee machine. So that's why I'm very excited to be here today.
Now, looking at all of the people represented here from across the continent, what would you say is the message that you would give to the next generation of business leaders?
We need to be deliberate about our continent. We need to be deliberate about the diversity and inclusion agenda, specifically around the women agenda, and that is why as ABSA Group is right in the center of our strategy, and that's the message I really want to share to the youngsters, to say, let's celebrate Africa, let's make Africa we want to see, and Africa the legacy that would be proud of.
That's a fantastic message. Now, looking at the Africa that we have today, how do you view the current economic climate, the business opportunities?
Look, it's a fact that the economic climate right now is a bit cloudy, but for me, I'm still saying there are opportunities. Like they say, behind every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. We are seeing some economies in Africa opening up. If you look at the IMF, yes, they've revised the GDP growth down to 2.8% or so, but some of the African countries, they're still growing as high as 5%, and that's what we should be pinning our hopes on and focusing in.
So for us, being a business that actually is more international than anything else, set up on standards that are international, set up on, what do they call it, on the ability to be able to give the quality of services that changes things. We needed to be able to bring on the ability to bring on trade, bring on investment into the country, and being the icon. Remember, what do they call it? Every country has a face. And the face of every country is its transport. When you arrive in every country, the first thing that you see is how you get to your hotel. That's why I call it the face of the country. And it is important that people see that a country like ours is different and has the ability to be able to get you from the airport to Sandton to the center of Johannesburg to the center of Pretoria, where you can talk to politicians. And to us, we are a great part of trade and investment. And therefore, it is not an anomaly that we sponsor this award. We see ourselves, remember the Gauteng was built as an economic development project before it was a transport project. And therefore, it is important that we look at it in that way.
That's what I find interesting, because it's almost like the child sponsoring the parent in a way. But then keeping that in mind, I mean, looking at the award winners, or who the entity will be, what are you hoping to see in a winner?
In a winner, holistically, we want to see somebody who's growing Africa. The Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is important to us. It's important to us because as we go into our new concession agreement, or the new world that we are going into as the Gauteng, is we want to see Africa being first and foremost in the front of everything, and then beyond that, leading everything that we want to have, and then Africa investing in Africa. And that is bigger than us, so the sum of the parts has to be greater than what we hope to achieve.
Indeed, and I mean, speaking of the AFCFTA, how do you see the future in light of that, particularly for your agency?
So for us, as we go, so our current concession agreement will come to an end in 2026. To be specific, on the 26th of March in 2026. And that in itself is that we see the Africa, Continental Free Trade Agreement being an enabling agreement that allows African, companies to be able to invest in the Gautrain. And to us, that's important more than anything else.
The All Africa Business Leaders Awards 2023 served as a platform to inspire and encourage the next generation of African entrepreneurs and leaders. With the collective efforts of businesses and individuals, Africa's potential for economic growth and development is set to flourish, paving the way for a brighter future for the continent and its people.